Alrighty.
At this very moment, in a system far from here, the New Republic lies to the galaxy. All remaining systems will bow to the First Order.
Hello
And welcome.
to the first ever live episode of All Remaining Systems. I'm your host, Michael,
And I'm Matthew.
and we're gonna do something new. Obviously, this has never been live before. First of all, I should explain the hiatus between episodes. Right after I announced a regular upload schedule. For those of you who haven't been following me on Twitter at Local First Order, what happened was COVID happened. I may or may not have gotten it. I tested negative, but had a really bad cough and still have somewhat of a lingering cough. So yeah, that was the reason for the delay in episodes. And now Matt and I were going to record in person this week. And then the biggest snowstorm we've ever seen in Arkansas happened. And there's currently 12 inches of snow outside. So yeah, that wasn't going to happen. So instead we chose to improvise this sort of live format. So here we are now. And today our topic of discussion is going to be the Star Wars role-playing game campaign that we started and wrapped up last year. We started it back in January and it wrapped up in November, correct?
Something like that, but it was a span of... How long was it? A couple of years? Or has it been a couple of years since we've done it? Because I remember there was large gaps in between.
You're thinking of the Edge of the Empire campaign. I'm talking the Force and Destiny campaign from last year.
Oh, okay. Yes, okay.
Yeah, that's the one we'll be discussing today.
Gotcha. It's been such a long time since we've done that one, too. So, yeah, I'd say it was about November.
Yeah, there's a lot of hiatuses that have gone on with our role-playing games. Like, we just had a 2-month one for our D&D game because of holidays and then COVID and all that. So, well, let's start off by, Matt, do you want to describe your character of Scythe for that game while I tweet out the fact that we are live?
Yes, sure. So my character was Scythe Phosphor. He was a Jedi, more specifically a Jedi guard at the Jedi Temple. And during Order 66, him and a bunch of younglings ended up fleeing. And he wasn't quite necessarily trained to the full potential that he could have been. Of course, a lot of Jedis were being sent out to the front lines, and there's a big void that needed to be filled. So that's why he was rapidly put into guard duty. But so Order 66 happens. He escapes with a bunch of younglings, and through the years, through hiding and running away, the younglings either went away from the group or were captured or killed, and he finds himself kind of lost and always on the run. And later he meets up with the rest of the group.
Yep. We had 2 other players at the start of this game, one of whom had never seen Star Wars before, so that was kind of interesting. And then we had one who was a bit more familiar and had played a couple of one-shots with us before. Actually, she's been on the podcast before, Brooke from our Rise of Skywalker review. One of the episodes we haven't deleted. But yeah, that campaign took place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith and ended a few months later. It didn't. I don't think there was a very long length from the start to the end of the story. I mean, it was always kind of vague, but
right. What I liked about this campaign that we did, none of us were your typical humans until we had one person later join who was a human.
Yes, but the starting party was a Chiss, a Gran, and you were an Umbaran.
Yes.
And I was the GM or game master.
Or the Bendu.
Basically the one who, yeah, I'm the Bendu, the one in the middle. No, basically I ran the game. But speaking of running the game, if any of you have any questions at any point about the game that we were running or anything like that, you can feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them, or just ask us questions about anything else, and we'll answer them at the end of the show. We got someone here now. We got Luke from Hothoff Podcast saying howdy.
Howdy.
You're speaking our language. We're here in Arkansas, so you know how to use our vernacular. But I took extensive notes for some of this campaign. I've got every session we've ever done named and labeled. So our plan is to discuss maybe the first two kind of arcs that we did for this game. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We're doing this pretty loosey goosey. We're just gonna have fun with it. See, is there any other information we need to preface with before we get on with what the plot of this game was? Have I left anything crucial out, Matt?
Well, I think we should explain what the game itself is. It's a Star Wars role-playing game similar to Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep, it is specifically Star Wars Force and Destiny. There's 3 like rule books that each cover different sections of the Star Wars universe. There's Edge of the Empire, which is the Han Solo, scum and villainy, crime stuff. There's Age of Rebellion, which is Rebels versus Empire, or through some supplements you can make it like Clones versus Separatist, or if you get really creative you can do Resistance versus First Order. And Force and Destiny is all your Jedi Force user fun stuff. And that was the campaign we did, because we had previously and are technically still in the middle of an ongoing Edge of the Empire game, but I wanted to get on a Force and Destiny game because I had an idea for a plot for a while. I completely lost what I was going to say.
Well, more about the game. Everyone gets a character sheet. You fill out your own character, your race, your preferences, and it's got a list of characteristics, skill sets, and that correlates with how many dice you roll. Again, similar to Dungeons and Dragons.
In fact, the character sheet might look something like this.
Whoa!
This was for a DMPC, which is normally frowned upon, but I'll get into why I did it because I thought I was being very clever about it. We'll go into some of like the specific dice mechanics maybe a little bit later when it comes up, but I think for now we should get into the basic plot, which was you guys, like we said, 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, the party of player characters are trying to stop a group of rogue Sith Lords, self-proclaimed Sith Lords, who are going about and doing bad stuff, and they had to stop them.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. The first session, you guys made your characters, and then we just kind of jumped right into it. Session 1 was called The Night Brother. Basically, the plot hook was you guys stumbled across a derelict ship that had just been massacred. You found out that some archaeologists had uncovered some Sith artifacts and took them. And you were going to shoot. I gotta actually pull out my notes. I'm trying to remember what planet it was you guys had to go to, because it was kind of an obscure one that I picked out.
Unfortunately, all of my notes are in the studio.
Yeah. I don't remember what the planet was, so they had to go to a planet. And you had to find the person who was supposed to originally receive these items, who was his contact was only known as the Night Brother. So you guys went and found a circus on this planet. Yes, and then you found a character, a Zabrak known as Diaru. And those who watch this channel, you may know Diaru and his master Ide Kier from a short story I wrote and narrated called Scorn. Yeah, that came from this campaign. That was his backstory. Diaru was a former Inquisitor, or Inquisitor in training, as you came to find out. Ide Kier was sort of an old Jedi Master who had been trying to stop this cabal of Sith Lords who were known as the Elegy of Malevolence, which is the coolest name I've ever come up with, and I will never top it. Let's see, Matt, were there any highlights from this sort of early game that you can recall as I'm stumbling?
I remember when we started the game, I was like, okay, got to make my character cool. So I remember when we stumbled on this ship, like trying to be all stealthy. In fact, I had the vision of Batman from like Arkham Knight kind of thing, where I was like, okay, got to solve this mystery and got to make sure if there are people, got to take them down stealthily, quietly, but most importantly, not to kill them. So I tried to make a strong-handed pacifist character, and when we went down to this area, I thought for sure that with this Zabrak that obviously didn't like us, I thought we were going to get into some sort of lightsaber conflict, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. But little did I know at the time that our journey was just beginning, and enemies that actually did have lightsabers hurt a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, we'll get into that for sure. When you had tried to attack the big bad evil guy a third of the way through the campaign, that was fun. But also at the start of the game, none of you guys had lightsabers. Through various reasons, you guys abandoned them either to stay hidden or just lost them over the years, you know?
Yeah, so my character was going in with just a couple of blades that I was either going to throw them or just try to slicey dicey.
No, you also had a bandolier of grenades for most of the campaign.
That is true. I also had a whole bandolier of grenades.
Which did lead to one really like saved your allies moment. We'll get to in a bit. But sort of the first major mission you guys had was to construct your lightsabers. And I chose not to go to Ilum because, you know, the Empire.
Yeah, they would have
known. So instead, I came up with a new area that I completely ripped off from somewhere else. You guys went to a place that was only known as the Kyber Graveyard, which was a complete knockoff of the Keyblade Graveyard from the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Because none of you guys play Kingdom Hearts, it's not stealing if you guys don't know. You guys met the ghost of an old Jedi there, and there was some lore about how this place had once been like the battlefield between some Jedi and Sith, yada, yada, yada. You found some Kyber crystals and you built your lightsabers. Oh, and you had your technical first encounter with the Elegy of Malevolence, because two of the members, Darth Abyss and Darth Cinder, were there.
And they sent their creatures to do their bidding.
Yeah. Abyss, in particular, had a lot of weird, like, chimeras and things she would send after you guys. It was basically an easy excuse for me to just reskin some monsters from one of these books, the Allies and Adversaries. I just take monsters and reskin them and be like, all right, fight these things, and that would be an easy way for me to come up with some enemies.
As you make up things on the fly. Yeah, fight these. Hold on.
Hey, I did have to make some things on the fly when you guys take out my enemies way too quickly, which we'll get to here in a minute, because that was one of the next sessions. Session 2 was called the Kyber Graveyard, by the way. I think that was kind of it for the major events of that one. Session 3 was called Black Hearts. Also, as a note, this game was done weekly for the most part. We started off playing every Thursday, I believe. So we this was a regular thing for us. Just thought I'd clarify. Black Hearts was about you guys going to Nar Shaddaa, and it was specifically for the purpose of Ide Kier had found out that there was some sort of Inquisitor activity there. And so you guys were going to investigate to figure out what it was, see if it had maybe anything to do with the elegy. And this was sort of one of the more open missions you guys had, because you could have sided with a Hutt known as Gorga the Hutt and killed some Imperials for him, and he would give up that information. Or through some investigating, like you guys ended up doing, you managed to find a man named Caldus Silfer, who seemed trustworthy at the time.
Anyone that wants to play a card game with you,
yeah, he
trust immediately.
his the way you got information from him was you played a game of Pazak with him, which I had actually found a way to do with some cards. That was fun. Basically, it was him. He was going to give you the information no matter what. He just wanted to gauge how badly you really wanted it. And he seemed like a cool guy. He was a Jedi. He fought off the Inquisitor, invited you to his planet to chill. It all seemed pretty good at the time. Any highlights from or memorable moments from those last two sessions, Matt, while I find my notes on the next one?
I remember playing him in the game, and I ended up losing.
You did.
And then another member of the party tried playing again, and she ended up winning. Yeah, and just when he finally revealed himself as a Jedi, I was like, oh, okay. So,
because you were the one who specifically called it. I just described there was a weird dude in the bar, and you were like, you guys actually went to Gorga after that, and then you were like, no, wait a minute, that dude was shady. There's something about that. And the way you looked at me was like, you specifically, though, you put that there for a reason. I'm not going to ignore that.
Yeah, it was a little weird because we were just wandering the streets, and this character had more dialogue than just, hey, you got a quarter kind of thing. Yeah. So it's like, it's oddly specific, being like, hey, you're looking for something, you want to play some cards, I'll give you whatever information you're looking for kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, like, answering every question with a question kind of thing also kind of gives it away.
Right. And just generally being shady when you're looking for some shady people, like, it's kind of an easy connection, but you're the one who picked up on it. So
I need to figure out where this drug operation is. Well, let's go ask these drug dealers.
Let's ask this man injecting heroin on the street,
Yeah, excuse me, sir. Where'd you get that heroin? Walgreens? Well.
Session 4 was called Respite at Deparsis, at which you guys went to an original planet made by me called Deparsis, which had a little small Jedi enclave on it, where Caldus Silfer was training 3 apprentices. And it all seemed pretty chill. It was mostly a just sort of roleplay and relaxed session. I think you guys found out a little bit more about the Elegy of Malevolence. Yes, he found out that the Elegy was going to convene somewhere, and they were going to have some sort of item transported to them, and you guys were going to go intercept it before it got there, which was sort of setting up the next session with the Gauntlet. At least I think it was the next one. No, it wasn't. No, I'm wrong. First, you guys had to go to the planet the Darth Abyss was from, and her.
Oh yes, with the little villagers, the mud people.
Yeah,
and the big old worm.
Yeah, you had to fight a giant worm. Uh, there was something else. Respite of Deparsis is also when you found out Diaru's backstory. Because there was an incident where, like, two of Caldus's apprentices, like, started, like, fighting, not just sparring. And Caldus shot him with Force Lightning, which was the first moment you guys had of, like, oh, wait a sec. And you found out this dude had weird opinions on balance of the Force and used the dark side a lot. Did you? I can't recall exactly. Did you trust Caldus much after that, or did you?
So I was like, could I use the dark side kind of thing? I was looking at player stats because I wanted my dude to be OP is on Get Out. So I was like, okay, what can I learn? Can I learn some Force Lightning?
My own heart. I'm a power gamer, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
I was like, could I learn the Force Choke? Something. I don't know. Maybe I could learn something from this guy.
Dark side and all of its negatives, but I could be really powerful in the game, you know?
Yeah. I was like, if Mace Windu could babble back and forth with some aggressive stuff.
And I will say we did homebrew some of the rules in Force and Destiny. Like, it's got a whole like morality system that's kind of point based, where you're assessed by your moral deeds at the end of every session and judged numerically as a result. And I didn't really like it, so we just kind of threw it out. As much as I do love this game, there are some weird and overcomplicated mechanics that I don't like the way it's done, and so we just sort of changed it for the way we run our game. But that's sort of the good thing about role-playing games, is that you can change and adjust the rules all you want, and you are delightfully encouraged to do so.
What I've liked about this game, though, we have encouraged more of the rules, because I've noticed with Edge of the Empire, we haven't really had that much of a damage-based system.
Yeah, we weren't really very rules as written. It was very kind of free form and more narrative.
Oh, you got 3 successes? Yeah, you killed the dude. Where in this one, it's like, okay, so how much damage does your lightsaber do?
Minus a soak and Kenny Parry and all this stuff. Yeah, it was. This game was definitely my attempt to get more rules as written and less freeform. Because also with our Edge of the Empire game, it was our first experience with any sort of strict, I guess, role-playing game system. And it's not even that strict. It's just we're used to things like Fiasco where there's almost no rules, you know?
Yeah, like, oh, you got shot in the shoulder? Well, you'll just drink some heal tea and you'll be fine.
Right. Okay, the next session was Odin Tree, which was you guys going to a world called Odin Tree and investigating Darth Abyss's village. You found out she was like the daughter of a fortune teller and had inadvertently, through some force powers, made some fortunes come true, like causing like great like weather disasters and stuff like that. The three of you and Diaru, you went through some tunnels. You fought some undead dudes, a few monsters, and then a giant worm who dug those tunnels.
It was a giant Alaskan bullworm.
Later, they had to take that village and push it somewhere else. And I think it was actually through this and this sort of exploration of her lair sort of in this cavern system that you actually found out about the gauntlet that you were supposed to go stop them from getting. Or so you thought. Because the next session was session 6, The Hand of Demise, where you guys went to Tatooine. That was fun. And you fought a Magna Guard, which I thought I meant it as like a sort of teaching experience, because like you said, we were going more rules as written for this game, and I needed to stress, because you guys are playing sort of archetypal Jedi, you all wield lightsabers and whatnot. that if you're going to play a melee character, you need parry as an ability. It is essential to your survival, especially in lightsaber duels. And I couldn't really teach that when you kill my Magna Guard in like 3 hits through some lucky dice rolls. And so I had to be like, and then another one shows. But technically, through the rules of this game system, what I did was not incorrect, because you get
You're like, you know what? Double the Magna Guards.
this is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them. But no, there's a system in this game known as the Destiny Point system, where you roll little dice at the start of every session. And light side points, if they're rolled, can be used by the players to sort of boost their rolls or sort of Deus Ex Machina some stuff to help them. And dark side points can be used the same way by the GM. And when you use them, they flip to the other side, blah, blah, blah. Point is, I had to use one to throw in an extra Magna Guard because you guys got a couple lucky hits in and never would have learned that lesson. So,
We weren't lucky. It was all skilled, taught to us by our masters before.
exactly.
We're like, oh yeah, we've got this. And then finally a second one came out and we just forgot all of our training.
Yep. Just brain shut down.
Yeah. We're like, yeah, did you see that? That was cool. We hear the clanking. We're like, oh, crap.
But yeah, once you defeated the Magna Guard and the other Magna Guard, you did finally get inside this little cargo ship and retrieve the Hand of Demise.
Oh, we knocked over a protocol droid, didn't we? Yeah.
I forgot about that. You knocked over a protocol droid who was just screaming nonstop because he couldn't get back up. But you uncovered the Hand of Demise, which was a Sith gauntlet that had an ancient Sith spirit in it. And whenever you held it, it would talk to you and tempt you with dark power if you put it on.
Very similar to a jar of marmalade that I have in my cupboard.
Very similar to a jar of moonshine I have in my cupboard. Because, we're in Arkansas. But no, what was your reaction to finding the gauntlet?
I was like, oh, cool. Another item I can use.
You did think about putting it on at first, and I was like, oh, Matt, you may lose your character if you end up doing this. Like, this could be bad. But as soon as it started telling you, you were like, I'm not going to do that.
This feels too much like a person. I wouldn't put my hand into a random person. That's just rude.
At least buy them dinner first, Matt. First live show, I think, is going great. Was there anything else that happened in that session? Oh, I forgot to mention a very important plot point. Ide Kier died.
Oh yeah, he was slaughtered by an Inquisitor.
Yes, a new Inquisitor who had just been inducted, and his final test was to kill Ide Kier. Sound familiar? Yeah, because the Diara had to try and do that once, but this time they succeeded, and Diara was not too happy about that. So he was struggling with some dark side stuff, and I sort of hinted to you guys. I was like, his fate is in your hands. And I wasn't very clear on what that meant, but basically it was whether or not he turns to the dark side is up to you guys. It was very likely that he would turn, but you guys had a chance to kind of stop it.
So I did try. You try.
You made it worse once or twice, but you did try.
Yeah. But I think that's true with a lot of things that you even see in the movies. Sometimes they try really hard and it just pushes them even further.
Yeah, because the reasons for Diara returning to the dark side were, I think, a little more complex than you guys understood at the time. It wasn't just I'm angry my master died. It was sort of I am feeling all this anger. And I'm surrounded by people who don't seem to be doing that, who seem to be proceeding normally and moving on. And the fact that I'm not doing that makes me feel like maybe I can't be better, that I'm stuck in this place of darkness and there's no hope for me. And so it was sort of, it's not quite jealousy of you guys, but it's, he felt sort of inferior being around you morally.
Just kind of out of place.
Yeah, and like maybe,
it's like if you're at a party and everyone's having fun and talking because they all know each other, but you were like the guest who was invited, and you're just awkwardly in the corner, and you're like, well, I know I'm supposed to be having fun and talking to people, but but I've seen horrible things.
And now we've got session 7, which was sort of the end of the first arc. It was called The Plundered Library / Toxin. And it was called this because it was originally supposed to be 2 sessions, and then we kind of did it as 1. You guys had discovered from that ship with the gauntlet, its navicomputer, that it was supposed to go to a planet called Ishtar, which you guys went to and found another Jedi temple. Because, when I need to move the plot along, I just throw in the Jedi temple.
And it had 3 Magna Guards.
It did have a probe droid. Oh, hey, we got his father and son here in the chat. Matt, these
General Kenobi.
Matt, these are some YouTubers. They're also in Arkansas, so.
Oh, cool. You enjoying the snow?
Yeah, Snowmageddon. Also during this session, you guys discovered that the Jedi Temple was actually a sort of sanctuary for Grey Jedi. Because one of the things I was kind of trying to do with this arc was it was sort of about balance of the Force and what that means and how light and dark cannot coexist. Like, you are either on the light side or the dark side, And that was sort of the point of Caldus's character, was to prove that it will tear you apart if you try and play both sides. You cannot physically do it. Oh, and you guys encountered the Inquisitor who killed Ide Kier here. And the slippery boy, he got away, but...
Did he do the helicopter blades from Rebels? Did he do that?
I don't think he did. I think he just did a force jump.
Okay.
It wouldn't surprise me if I did describe it that way, but I don't think I did.
Because he was like, because the way he said it, he was like, he sees your numbers, and he just says, nope, and he just jumps out of there.
We're trapped inside. It's like we're doing time or something. Me, I'm having the time of my life. I think we are too. Matt was telling me before the stream he's having a great deal of fun during.
Oh yeah, I got to get off work. I've been playing Jedi Fallen Order. It's been a great day.
And you guys discovered your little droid companion.
Oh yeah, we call him Gil. It was G11.
Yeah, his technical designation was G11, and he was like the head of like an astromech droid with like spider legs, like from the little thing in Jabba's palace. He was pretty cool. I liked him.
So in my mind, the way I kind of envisioned him was kind of like the droid that Iden Verso had.
Yeah, it was kind of similar to that, or like the Seventh Sister. I did get that reference. I love Arrested Development. Anyway, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You guys also discovered a corpse there.
Yes.
And you replayed. Gil had like his last like will and testament like recorded, and at the end of it,
this droid was kind of trapped with a corpse.
Well, he was in low power mode. He was fine. He was taking a nap. But he talked like about how his apprentice Obel like fell to the dark side after they tried like Balance of the Force and it didn't work. And he came here in his like last days to kind of look for answers. And at the end of message, he ends it by saying like, "Oh, my name is Caldus Silver, and this is my last will." And you're like, "Oh, what? I thought we knew Cald. Who is that other guy?"
And he used lightning. He's a bad guy. This is bad. This whole situation's bad.
Yeah,
Destroyed.
That's when you found out he was actually a member of the Elegy of Malevolence, known as Darth Toxin. And I do have little character portraits for some of these characters. I'm probably going to post them on Twitter later. I was going to try and do it for the stream, but I don't think I can do it with the free version of StreamYard that we're using. So it'll just be on Twitter. So then you guys went back to Parsis to confront Caldus and found out that he had sacrificed his apprentice in some sort of ritual to get himself more power that ended up almost killing him. And so you fought him and eventually killed him. And then you had your first encounter with the leader of the Elegy of Malevolence, a man named Darth Hollow, who loved to show up via force projection and taunt you guys and just be a huge, smug asshole about it. Like, he was I wanted you to hate this guy in every way possible. What did you think of Darth Hollow and his shenanigans?
He was the absolute worst. he was a smug little prick, and he's like, "Ooh, I could force project. What could you do?" And it's like, actually be here.
And he's like, "Oh yes, you're always playing into my plans." You're just like, "Shut up, go away."
And it was like, man, I really just want to ruin everything about this person.
Yeah, I think I definitely succeeded in making you dislike this gentleman. So the members of the Elegy of Malevolence, just to clarify at this point, are Darth Hollow is the leader. Then you've got Darth Abyss, who was the woman from Odin Tree. There was the Darth Cinder, which you guys didn't really know anything about at this point. Toxin, who you just killed. And that was it at the time. Diaru's still hanging around you guys. He's still...
We also met Cinder as well, because Cinder was taking care of the bodies.
That was later. That was a session or two later when you guys came back. Because you guys... He taunted you and found out after you guys killed Toxin. And he was like, "I'm going to send a bunch of monsters to go kill everyone in that village on Odin Tree."
Oh, yeah, that's right. We were like, "Oh, we gotta go."
So you're like, "Well, we kind of want to download all the stuff that's on Toxin's computer, but we also need to go save those people." And so you booked it there. Another important note. At the end of this first arc, Session 7, after you guys killed Darth Toxin, the day that we did that session was the day COVID kind of went crazy here in the States. That was the day when, like, literally at the end of the session, I was, like, checking my phone. It's like, "Oh, all of my classes are now online." And literally that night, I'm in my college apartment. I'm like, well, if all my classes are online, there's no point in me being on campus. So I just packed everything up and left the next day.
Yeah, and what was interesting about that, it was like, well, I got to find a new job now.
Yeah, because you were teaching at the time.
Yeah. and
you're kind of teaching what you taught. It doesn't really work very well online.
No, you can't do that online.
You should clarify what you teach so that way that doesn't sound sinister.
And it's kind of hard to teach welding online. You know, you have to be physically there. And I mean, it's hard to teach muscle movement in general, but it's a lot easier when you're in person.
Mm-hmm. So then we started the second arc about a couple weeks later we were doing them via Zoom or Google Hangout or Discord, whatever we started with. We did most of them via Google Hangout after this. So we did get a new player who played a character known as Shrek. He was a Rhodian who lived in a swamp, and he was big and fat, and he was named Shrek. and that was pretty much as much depth as his character got.
Most OP character though.
It was. I loved his play today. He got really good dice rolls all the time, which was crazy, and he still does. But he wasn't as into the serious role playing, and so he was just sort of there for the fun of it, and he enjoyed it, and we enjoyed having him there. It was always a good bit of comedic relief whenever you guys would be having a serious discussion. He curls up in a ball to just
or like we're like, oh, we need to hide. He's like, I will take the shape of a boulder.
And it worked most of the time.
Yeah.
But also our player who had never seen Star Wars prior to joining the game dropped off around this point just because it was a bit too much to keep up with at the time with all the COVID stuff going on. So we still had 3 people, just one of them got swapped out, basically. You guys went back to Odin Tree, saved the villagers from some monsters as they got onto like a transport, and then you fought off some mercenaries who had been guarding the village because they found out you guys were Jedi and were going to sell you over to the Empire. And actually, I was looking over my notes prior to the podcast, and one of the bounty hunters, the name I chose for him because you guys never found out their names, I was like, well, this name's just too good to not use, so I moved it to another character, and that character became Royce Barron.
Oh.
Royce Barron was originally the name of a random bounty hunter, but he became one of the like main NPCs of the campaign later. And by later, I mean next session. Because after you saved those villagers, Darth Hollow showed up via force projection again to taunt you and was like, "Oh, come find me on Ord Mantell or whatever." And so you knew it was up to no good on Ord Mantell. First, you stopped back at Debarsis, and you met Darth Cinder, who was not at all what you expected. He was a younger kind of ex-Jedi. I think he was early 20s is what I said. And basically, he was there like making makeshift graves for all the apprentices that Toxin sacrificed. And he was like, yeah, we didn't know he was going to do this. He was always kind of crazy. Okay, thanks for stopping by as father and son. Not sure which it's Timothy. Timothy, great seeing you. Darth Cinder. Yeah, I could come up with Sith Lord names, but thanks for stopping by. I've been enjoying the streams you've been doing lately. Talk with you later. But anyway, Darth Cinder. He was I'm trying to remember what you guys knew about him at this point, because it wasn't much. Do you remember?
So, everyone had different kind of ambitions. We knew that Hollow was the leader, and we knew that Cinder took more of a systematic approach to the Force. And we knew that. Oh man, who is? Oh, I forgot her name.
Abyss?
Abyss, yeah. Darth Abyss, she was more of like the sorcerer of the group.
Yeah, so, she was definitely inspired by the likes of like Darth Zana from Legends, where she was sort of a Sith sorceress.
Right, and it was actually Toxin that was telling us about each kind of character.
That right, because Toxin had files on all these people, when really
files when he just sat in the same room and freaking ate Cheez-Its with them. And
well, the Toxin was always kind of separate from the rest of them. His goals were he thought he was using them when they were really just using him. Mm-hmm. He was playing checkers,
really.
And what were you saying?
I said that's really true about all of them, because it wasn't really a group. It was mainly just one person using all of them.
I mean, Abyss thought her goals aligned, and she thought her mistake was thinking that Hollow cared about her at all. It was very much kind of like a Harley Quinn Joker situation where she's infatuated with him and unable to realize at the moment she is no longer useful to him, she is dead. And Cinder thought that Hollow's goals were something entirely different when he was just being used, because I think you guys learned this about Cinder at this point. Cinder was haunted. I may call Cinder Royce Barron. That was his real name. I may go back and forth on that, so just to clarify. But Cinder had been, like, ever since he was a kid, like, plagued by horrific visions where he would, like, feel other people's pain, just like random people's pain throughout the galaxy, and it tormented him. And so he often went to places that were ruins in the Force just to avoid this, because it was so just like traumatizing to him. And really all along it was the Force trying to be like, hey, there are people in the galaxy who need help. This is like, you can go and help them. And Hollow twisted it into being like, we need to cut you off from the Force so you don't feel this pain anymore. And so Cinder thought the goal of the elegy was to separate the Force from the galaxy. And Hollow had deceived him into being like, yeah, there's these things that we know that there's life beyond the galaxy that's, immune to the Force. And so he thoroughly believed, oh, we're just going to find a way to separate the Force from the galaxy. Do you have any thoughts when you first met Cinder as to if you thought this was the actual goal, if you thought he was just a pawn, or what?
I kind of figured that he was a pawn, because when it was the whole discussion about how the Force kind of manipulated everything, where it got the Empire in control and all that stuff, it's like, okay, but I mean, why go through all this trouble just to cut off the Force if not everybody had the same ideals? Because I mean, sure, Toxin was the outsider, but that was way out of line. How does someone that's like way out of line of those views join the group, kind of thing?
And Hollow was very, like, as we talked about, when he just randomly called the order to have that village killed, he was needlessly cruel. Mm-hmm. And so you definitely knew there was not much altruism about him.
Yeah.
But after this, you guys went to Ord Mantell. Also around this point, a little Diaru update. Your Diaru newsflash for the week. Diaru, he started having like horrible nightmares and whatnot. And at one point, you had tried to like see if you could use the Force to sort of calm these nightmares. And he woke up while you were doing that, which was actually the thing that solidified his turn in the end. Because I don't know if I ever discussed this with you, Matt. What was happening at that time that you guys were unaware of was he was in close proximity with the Gauntlet, and the Gauntlet was influencing his thoughts and dreams and thinking like, oh, you'll never be good enough. You should just give in to these dark desires and seek out revenge. And it also started making him distrust you guys and thinking that maybe you were trying to use him and like manipulating him. And so when he awoke to seeing you trying to calm his thoughts in his sleep, he thought you were trying to like manipulate his thoughts as he slept. When really it was the Gauntlet doing that. And so he didn't trust you at all after that. I don't know if I ever brought that up in game.
No, you didn't.
So you guys went to Ord Mantell, specifically the city called Savoria, and you found out it was basically run by this crime lord named Nero Elico. And he was a huge like collector of any sort of like historical memorabilia, and recently was planning on throwing a big party to show off the fact that he uncovered the Force Harvester from the Clone Wars and had it like reassembled, not to where it was functional, but to where it was presentable. And so you guys figured out, oh, Hollow's going to steal that thing and make it operational. So you teamed up with the former crime leaders of that town, which was the Catalina family. And the Catalinas, when I designed them, were meant to kind of parallel the Jedi, to where like, oh, they were betrayed and their power was usurped, and now they're hunted and they live in squalor. It was very much just like they're the Jedi, or the criminal equivalent of what the Jedi are right now. So you guys went and you found out about the Force Harvester. I just realized I hadn't been calling what the sessions were called. 8 was called Return to Odin Tree. 9 was called Cinder, and now we're on 10, which is the Turn. Which is when Diaru turned to the dark side. After you guys discovered the Force Harvester stuff, you and him had a really intense argument. And he
Yes, I remember that the argument mainly took place when we were in the warehouse trying to figure out where this thing was, and he just started slaughtering the warehouse workers.
Yep. And I think you guys, if I recall, you guys found out that the Inquisitor who killed Ide Kir, known as the 13th brother, was also there. I think you guys did find this out at this point. You would have had to, because that's why Diaru ended up turning and putting the gauntlet on. I don't remember how you learned that, but you did.
Wasn't there, because I remember we were like sneaking by, and we had like a run-in with Imperials, and I remember like we actually like put on uniforms and stuff.
That was later.
Okay, yeah, because that's when
you guys ended up going back to Savoria later in the campaign.
Right.
I think what it was is you guys were scouting out Nero Eliko's tower, and you saw him talking security with the Inquisitor. I think that's what it was. I could be wrong, but
I thought the security detail was being done by the LG.
It was. The LG was doing the security for the event by having their droids there, which was a huge mistake on Nero Eliko's part. But I think the Imperials were involved, and they were trying to keep tabs on Nero, more or less. Either that, or it's been a while. It may have been the 13th brother also knew that the elegy was there. I think that might have been it. And he was also after the various Darths that plagued the planet. Anyway, point is, you ended up being like, at one point being like, fine, you want to go Inquisitor hunting? Let's go Inquisitor hunting. He's like, you don't have the balls. And so you went off in the city to go, I don't remember what. I don't even know if you were scouting for the Inquisitor or what you were doing. But it was just another party member on the ship with Diaru. And in the middle of the night, Diaru stole the gauntlet and ran off. And this is when you had your first real encounter with Darth Hollow. As you guys were trying to hunt down Diaru in the city. You tracked him to this one like subway system. You get on the little train, and Hollow's there in a seat, and he's doing his smug thing. And the way I had planned this was I was doing all these force projection things with Hollow, so that eventually you guys would be like, whatever, he's here again. You got to move on. And then he eventually like pats one of you on the back or something. You go, whoa, wait, what? He's actually here? It didn't turn out this way because you actually attacked. You want to talk about your decision to attack the main villain on session 10 of a 31 session campaign?
So he was right there. He was sitting down. And at this point, my character was angry because so he was just having enough of it. And on the off chance that he was actually there, maybe I would have actually done some damage on him. So I was hoping that he was there, which he was. and that I would at least get a good strike on him. And maybe if I took him out, maybe then we'd be able to take out the rest of the algae. Because I didn't know what you had in store of the algae. If maybe Abyss would have been actually in control through a plot point. I didn't know what your whole story was, and I didn't know how the actual makeup of the group was. For all I know, Cinder could have been in charge of the whole thing. And
yeah, you guys, like at this point, you guys really didn't know what the elegy wanted, and it actually isn't until near the end that you really got an idea. And really, ultimately, it wasn't that complicated. It was just Darth Hollow wanted to kill a lot of people because he's a crazy sadist who finds no purpose in life, and he's purely nihilistic.
Man, it sounds like high school.
But you got, I think, 3 damage in on him on your one attack, which isn't too bad. And then he got 1 hit on you and instantly knocked you out. And after that, the other members of the party were like, stand back a little bit, and I could have had a hey Gilster. Love the train spotting joke. He could have probably killed you guys there, but he still wanted you as an option in case he needed to push Diaru further to the dark side, because him basically telling you where the gauntlet was all part of his plan. He did want one of you to eventually put the gauntlet on and become Darth Demise, the Sith Lord that was hiding in the gauntlet. But yeah, you guys, he just left, and there were some consequences for a big public lightsaber duel on a train. Mainly the Imperial presence got ramped up a whole bunch, and you guys had to get creative with some disguises to get into Nero Eliko's party.
Which I'm actually glad that there was an Imperial presence, because then that means that the LG also got into the attention of the Empire.
Yeah, because it had kind of just been assumed up until now that the Inquisitorius was aware of the elegy of malevolence, but they just sort of were like, whatever, they're, a couple of people who claim to be Sith Lords. They can't actually be a threat, It's not like Sith Lords inspire hope in the galaxy like Jedi do, And then we got to session 11, which was the banquet, which was, the party. And you guys ended up at this party that Nero Eliko was hosting. And Darth Cinder sees you guys there. And he comes up to you and he's like, please leave now. This is going to get real bad. And you guys were like, no. Then Darth Hollow revealed that, he was in charge of all the security droids there. Then massacred everyone at the party. Although the one thing I did not expect, after all the horrible things I told you that Nero Eliko had done, like, hunting down the Katarina family, you saved him.
Yeah.
Matt, tell me about your decision to save Nero Eliko, because that was what I did not see coming.
It seemed like the Jedi way. Yeah, sure, he's done horrible things, but an opportunity to save a life is an opportunity to save a life. And a lot of common themes in Star Wars was redemption, so I was like, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that was one thing that was also a pretty common theme of this campaign. You guys, you end up redeeming a couple of villains. Your go-to option for most villains was not let's murder them, which I found to be quite good.
Yeah, as I said from the beginning of this campaign, I wanted kind of a, not really a pacifist, but someone that wouldn't really take a life, but maybe Batman up a little bit.
But unfortunately, in saving Gilster, we're talking about our Star Wars role-playing game that we wrapped up last year. We're sort of summarizing the plot, just sort of talking about it. This is only part 1 of a discussion. We'll do more later at some point. But thanks for stopping by. We appreciate the support. what else? Oh yeah, you revealed your position by saving Nero Elico, and that meant that Darth Cinder and Diaru, aka Darth Demise, knew where you were. And so this was sort of the first lightsaber duel. No, it wasn't. You guys had fought Toxin before. This was your first really bad lightsaber duel that you weren't going to win. And actually, the party ended up getting split up in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to explain a little bit about the dice system in this game, it's not like D&D where you roll a d20 and you add some numbers. It's not purely numerical. There are successes and failures and advantages and disadvantages that cancel each other, that eventually result in a die. And sometimes you may not succeed on a roll, but you may get some advantage, which still nets you some positive effect. Or in this instance, you rolled the best thing possible, which is a triumph, and you still failed the roll when you were trying to throw a grenade at one of these dudes. I think it was actually Diaru specifically. And so while the attack didn't work, he threw the grenade off to the side with the force and ended up blocking the exit so that he couldn't go to your friends that had gotten split off from you. Also, you found 13th Brother hiding in some ventilation shafts.
Yeah, and I forced him towards me.
You were almost going to kill him.
I was.
He offered an alliance with you, and you were just like, no, and left.
Yeah, I said, I was like, I'm not gonna kill you. Or when he got out of it, he's like, look, I'll offer the alliance, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna join you, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna get in your way. And I kind of left and did my own mission.
Right. Which, splitting the party is not the best idea in any RPG, but you guys were kind of, forced into it. No pun intended.
And while they were escaping, I ended up finding the harvester.
Yeah, so this was one of my favorite moments of the entire campaign.
It was my favorite moment too, because it's like the coolest thing my character's ever done.
Platform. It was either the closest or the second closest you've ever come to dying in any of my games. So what happened was, Darth Abyss had 3 Night Sister henchmen working for her, and she sent them to hook up cables to the harvester, and they were going to bring the ship and take it. And so you were the only one at this point capable of stopping that.
And I've already taken a lot of damage.
Yeah, you had taken some damage, and so you're like, oh crap, I'm about to go 3-on-1 trying to plant this explosive on this thing. And so, however, you had some defensive qualities on your lightsabers, which made it harder to hit you. And through some lucky dice rolls, or rather unlucky on my part, you managed to not die at the hands of the Night Sisters.
And I was also able to plant the explosives. I didn't plant it on the... Well, I did plant it on the harvester, but I blew up the entire platform.
You did. And specifically your maneuver to get out of there is because they had cut off your escape. You had to jump off the edge of the platform through a window, and it was literally all down to 1 dice roll whether you lived or died. And I made sure I told you, I was like, Matt, you do know if you fail this dice roll, you are going to fall from this building to your death. And you're like, yes, I'm going to do it anyway. And I was like, okay, as long as you know the potential consequences for this, you're allowed to do it. And you succeeded. They only hit you a couple times, and you soaked most of the damage up. And you barely made it out of there, but you crashed through this window, detonated the explosive, and destroyed the harvester and killed the Night Sisters. Which I must say I was very impressed with.
I was impressed as well. I was like, that was really cool.
That was one of the best moments of the entire campaign. And then the Empire rolled in because, all this stuff was going down at the tower, and you got out of there. You managed to escape. And then we got to the last session of this arc, which will probably be the last one we talk about. This one was called the Meditation Chamber. And basically, this was sort of just a transitional session because I knew at this point our good friend Skylar was going to be joining the campaign. You guys didn't know this, but I knew this. I had roped him into it. And we had made a character for him. And I was like, all right, I got to get you guys to a position where you're ready to meet his character as soon as the next session starts. So I came up with the excuse of, oh, you feel a calling from the Force to this one planet called Platus, because it's Star Wars. You can use the Force as a crutch just to move the plot along.
It's not how the Force works.
I tried to use that as low as possible, but it kind of comes with the territory with this sort of thing. And I didn't want all of the plot just to be, oh, the elegy taunts you because Darth Maul is being a smug a-hole, and so you're going to go wherever he tells you. So I wanted to switch it up a little bit,
The Force is being a smug a-hole, and it's telling you to go where it wants you.
Exactly, yeah. Because that is how the Force works. But it basically, you guys went to this like small, long since abandoned Jedi temple on this world called Platus. And Ide Cure's ghost was there, and he was like, "Hey, you guys can save Diaru. Also, there's someone here you should meet who's down in that village. Okay, bye." And he peaced out. Then you guys went down to the village, and that was sort of the end of the session. Like I said, it was the sort of denouement after the climax of the arc with Session 12, Tower of Terror. But yeah, what were your thoughts on the first two arcs of this campaign overall? You won't hurt my feelings with any criticism. So
the arc with Diaru leaving was kind of disappointing because he was kind of our main tank.
He was. He was a big, beefy boy with a brawn of 5.
With him being gone, it actually changed how I was going to build my character. Because after receiving, even though I was blocking pretty well, my character was taking a whole lot of damage. So I had to kind of beef myself up because our party was getting pretty hit bad too. So I was like, well, we kind of need someone to fill that role. So
yeah, the way this RPG works is kind of weird. With you don't really gain that much health as you sort of level up and advance. What you start with is generally what you're going to have for most of it.
See, I was going to be mainly like a force heavy kind of character, but
it's hard.
It's hard to do that. It's very hard to do that, and I just wasn't.
Force guys, they are a pain in your butt.
Yeah.
And if you're bad with rolling dark side, you're just straight out of luck.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of earlier when I was like, oh, I could learn some dark side stuff. That's what I was hoping for, was I could at least get something out of the dice. But since Diaru was gone, I was like, well, great. Now I'm going to have to be beefy and spend all of my hard-earned XP beefing myself up. So I was like, oh, all right, let's do it. Now, as I said, the whole tower, that was probably my favorite session out of all of it, because it was the moment where I was like, yeah, my character's pretty cool. I was like, that's a very Jedi thing to do, willing to sacrifice their life for the greater good of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I was like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was glad that you guys, like I said, I had built Diaru like a DM PC, which is generally frowned upon, but it was really to trick you guys into thinking he was going to stay when really there's a huge chance he could turn. I was glad you guys got attached to him, because I was really afraid with him being, leaning toward the dark side, you guys would be like, oh, we got to argue with Diaru again, and we got to keep pulling him back to the light, and it would be a burden. But no, you guys actually did care about this character, which made me more confident to do more things with people like Darth Cinder in the future. Yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap up this discussion of the first, not quite half, but first 2 arcs of the campaign?
Yeah, so it was pretty fun. It was what you would expect out of, well, not what do you expect, but it was like a fun. You're very predictable, Michael. No,
Your sad devotion to the ancient archetypes.
so it was a fun Jedi adventure, something that you know you put yourself in these worlds, but the thing is, you don't put yourself as these kind of weaker characters. It felt like a more realistic imagination of Star Wars. Like when you imagine yourself when you're a kid, you imagine yourself as the Jedi. You're super powerful. You know all the tricks. You always win. There's never any real drama. Sure, you may get kicked back, but you'll rise back up. This, yeah, we could have died at a lot of different points.
Yeah, that's the thing with this game system is no matter how high level your characters get, they're very frail. And like you can get to be pretty powerful, but you can't take too many hits, you know?
But I think that also kind of gives more of a thrill when you do more daring things. Like, yes, you have a potential to die, and you have to remake a character that you've already spent so much time into. And it's like, well, yeah, sure. When you risk it and you succeed, it's all that more thrilling.
Exactly. That's why I kind of wanted to go more rules as written for this campaign. Was we had a lot of fun doing Edge of the Empire when we were first starting, but there's not a whole lot of challenge when you just like, yeah, sure, you shot him. I guess he's dead, you know.
yeah, kick him a bit. Yeah.
But yeah, I was very happy with the way this campaign was turning out. It was a little unfortunate that we had to do most of it via video call because it's much more fun in person. But
I agree.
Yeah, there were certainly some challenges to overcome too with the dice and whatnot, having to use online dice rollers and
you just don't get that good feel. And it felt like the online dice roller, we didn't really get as good of rolls that we could have gotten.
Mm-hmm. And at the very least, it doesn't help you at all with actually learning how the dice system works and learning to read the symbols and yeah. Well, is there anything else we want to bring up before we bring this session to a close? Or not this session, this podcast. You got me in RPG brain mode.
Well, all I can really say is for those that are able to meet up in smaller groups, and I do recommend looking into this role-playing game.
Oh, yeah.
It's really fun. Even if you're not the D&D type of people, if you just looking for a casual thing to do with your Star Wars friends, this is really fun.
It is a fun and unique way to play in the Star Wars sandbox. The way I like to say it is that, Star Wars is a sandbox that anyone can play in. You're never too old to not play in the sandbox. It's just the way you play and it changes. You might be playing pretend or whatever as a kid. This is just a slightly different way of playing pretend as an adult,
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, you can just be sitting around, having a few drinks and just having like one-offs. You can take it as serious as you want, or you could have as much fun with it.
Exactly. Like the way we were playing a lot of rules. The way we were playing like Edge of the Empire originally, like we were talking about, very loose with the rules. We're not playing that game wrong. We're just playing it different. And that was, I think, the perfect way for us to like get started, is because we didn't have to worry about being bogged down by all the rules, and we were just coming up with a fun story together, Yeah,
we were just having fun and being like, oh, it'd be cool if we killed someone this way, or it'd be cool if we interacted this, or if we got this item, or wouldn't it be neat if something dramatic like this happened?
Yeah, and like with Edge of the Empire, there's things like looking back on that campaign where I'm like, oh, I don't like how I GM this. Whereas on this campaign, I can look back and be a lot more proud of not just what I did, because anyone can come up with any sort of story. It's about the way the players work in that environment. It was the way I was able to create a fun game for you guys to play in. That's what I'm proud of. Not of I made some cool bad guys for you to fight.
What was cool is you rolled with the punches as well, which that's very essential with a good GM, is someone that can adapt to the situation, because players are very unpredictable.
You will learn this anytime you try and run a game. No matter what you think the players are going to do, they're not going to do that. And even just in our last D&D game that we were playing this last weekend before Snowmageddon happened, you guys were on like a pirate ship, right? And you guys are coming up with a plan of how we can sabotage the captain and get him killed by the leader of this pirate group. I couldn't have planned for that. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll come up with it if they decide to do it. You know, it's not about stopping the players and trying to force them onto a certain railroad. It's about rolling with punches, letting the players do what they want within reason, but also letting them face relevant consequences as long as you make those consequences clear.
It's kind of like a game in both ways.
Yeah.
You gotta have a game for the players to play, and then you gotta make sure you're not played by the players.
Exactly. You can't let them walk all over the world, but you can definitely let them skirt a few lines here and there, you know? All right. I think that's about it. Thanks to everyone who joined us, Tim, Gilster, Luke, and thanks if you listened or watched this after the fact. You can follow me on Twitter at Local First Order. You can like and subscribe. We should be back to our regular upload schedule now, depending on weather and whatnot. We'll see. And hey, we may try and do another one of these live streams here soon, because this was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed this. Anything else from you, Matt, or are we good to go?
Oh, we're good to go. I'm ready to go out and play in the snow.
All right. Well, with all that being said, remember to support your local First Order. Down with your resistance, scum. Many Bothans died to bring you this podcast. And all remaining systems will bow
To the First Order.